Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us at the TikTok Cultures Research Network's third event titled TikTok Methodologies. I'm Associate Professor Crystal Levitin. I'm the founder of the TikTok Cultures Research Network, and it's a joy for me to welcome you to our event and to also run through some housekeeping and some house rules before we proceed. First off, please note that all presentations are being recorded and they will be uploaded on tiktokcultures.com later this week. We also encourage you to use the Q&A to ask the presenters any questions. For our panelists, after this opening, we ask that you ensure your mics and videos are muted until your session. And for attendees, as usual, please look out for some links that we might drop into the chat and direct all queries to your Q&A. We're also really excited to announce that we are launching today our global membership registry. So if you're interested in being a part of the TikTok Cultures Research Network, whether as a regional leader from different parts of the world outside of the Asia Pacific, or just as a member to keep up with what we're doing, please go and check us out at tiktokcultures.com/global members. And finally, we will be live tweeting the event at TikTok Cultures and also at #TikTokCultures. The TikTok Cultures Research Network was founded in October 2020 by myself, as well as a group of pioneer TikTok cultures researchers in the Asia Pacific region. We first launched in December 2020 with an event looking at the various cultures of TikTok in the Asia Pacific region. And in March 2021, with the help of several organizations, including the Social Science Research Council, we were very happy to share some preliminary findings on how COVID-19 was playing out on the app and have a dialogue with both industry professionals as well as journalists around the world about how TikTok was impacting youth cultures and advocacy. Which brings us to today. Going back to a shift to academic focuses, we are going to be looking at how to operationalize and conceptualize a TikTok project. Without further ado, I would like to introduce all of us very briefly to Mrs. Ingrid Cumming, who will be presenting the Welcome to Country from Curtin University.
Hey, Mom and Yoga Yakuling Nicha Katajan Maya Curtin University. Hi, everyone. My name is Ingrid Cumming. I'm the Noongar Cultural Advisor here at Curtin. And on behalf of my elders, past, present, and emerging, we want to welcome you to country here at Curtin University. So I'm going to sing a song for you. It's from a place called Kalamara, or Kalamundra as we like to call it. And the song is about bringing everyone together here at a place to learn, to grow, in hopes of walking in unity in this beautiful space. One of our biggest aspirations here as a reconciliation university. So ladies and gentlemen, clap along with me, if you will, as I sing you this beautiful song. Kopida wirin, saya kopida wirin, jadaning iranuna, mama yoga kulinga, nechan yoga puja, kopida yoga puja, mama ngang matang, mama ngang priya, mama ngang kulinga, wanju nechan yoga puja. Welcome to beautiful Noongar country here at Curtin University.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Ingrid Cumming, for the Welcome to Country. I would like now to introduce us to our panelists for the next coming sessions. But before we do that, we have to do the usual and acknowledge the people who have made this event possible. So first, here are a few thanks. Firstly, to the Faculty of Humanities at Curtin, the Center for Culture and Technology also at Curtin, as well as Ms. Linda Durek, who has been assisting the center with all things to do with administration. We're also really excited to acknowledge and appreciate the Digital Media Research Center at QUT, who have come on board as our institutional partners for this event, the Australian Research Council, who has funded parts of the research leading to these networks and events, as well as our artist, Adine Kayla, who has provided the beautiful poster you see before you. We're going to remind you of these following 3 updates as we close the session later, but just to keep this fresh in your mind and to keep you excited, we are also very excited to announce that our next event will be happening in September 2021. There'll be an open call for papers for an event on TikTok and social movements. We will also soon be launching a COVID-19 report as well as a TikTok syllabus. So now I'm really happy to hand the time over to Wei Wang, who is our moderator for session 1, looking at conceptualizing a TikTok project. Over to you.
Okay, hi everyone. Thank you for being here. It's a great honor for me to moderate the first session on conceptualizing a TikTok project of this event. I come from Shanghai Jiao Tong University. I'm now in Shanghai, and I also do research on new media, and especially, short video platforms in local China. So today we'll have 3 panelists for this session, and I think that they are wonderful scholars. They have done research on a wide range of topics such as political communication, digital culture, and family communication. And I think it's really important for us to think about how to integrate different kinds of research topics into the platform of short videos. So first, without further ado, I'll ask our 3 panelists to briefly introduce themselves, and then we'll have a 30 minutes of panel discussion, and the last 10 minutes will be for Q&A with our audience. Thank you. So Professor Adriana, would you please introduce yourself first?
Hi, my name is Adriana Marau, and I work in Unicinos, that a university here in Brazil in the south. And my main research topics are on digital media, digital culture, and subcultures and fans and audiences. So I think that's it for now.
Okay, thank you, Adriana. So next, Diana, would you please introduce yourself? Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Diana Zuli, and I'm an assistant professor of public relations and political communication at Purdue University in Indiana. So I'm still back in Sunday. I'm very interested in how digital technology and social media platforms affect social and political processes. So thinking about platform design and how we engage in those platforms both socially and then politically.
Okay, thank you, Diana. We'll have a gentleman. Nolan, would you please introduce yourself?
Thanks, Wei. Hi, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure being part of this panel, and I'm looking forward for the discussion. So my name is Milo, and I'm located in Melbourne in Australia. So we are covering several continents, obviously. My research interest is around young people and their use of digital technologies. And when I say young people, I'm mostly actually thinking like a younger side of young people. So really pre-teens between, let's say, 10 and 15 years of age. And I mean, TikTok is obviously one of the very popular apps in this demographic among those young people. So clearly my research is around that. I'm very interested to kind of acknowledge their voices and make their voices prominent in all this topic that is so much concerned about young people. And later on in the discussion, I'll be talking mostly about how we can give full agency to our young participants. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Miloan. After this brief introduction, so we'll move on to the panel discussion with our 3 panelists. So I think we can start with Diana. So you have, written papers on social media, sociality, like political communication. And I remember that in your paper, you mentioned that, so you use grounded theory, like qualitative kinds of data and different sources of data to articulate the concept of social and also to trace the history of social media. So would you please talk about like the value of qualitative inductive projects on emergent media or new media platforms? Thank you.
Absolutely. So as the moderator just said, I do a lot of grounded theory, inductive, qualitative projects on social media. And I think the impulse when we engage with new media is to think about all the big things we can do with all the data that is produced on these platforms, right? We've got hundreds of millions of videos, hashtags, and we've got hundreds of, millions of data points we can examine. And I think sometimes the impulse is to cull as much data as we possibly can and answer these really big questions. And I think there's tons of value in that. But I also think at this stage, we become so used to social media platforms being so prominent in our lives that we forget that there are nuances and that there are differences between the platforms that need to be interrogated and theorized from the ground up, right? Again, we've got this environment where we're all used to having social media platforms on our phones. We engage with them every single day. But again, there's value in kind of pulling back from the familiarity with all of these platforms and really thinking, how are they different? How are we using them? How does platform design really influence user behavior? And what does that look like, right? I think even now, right, we have a lot of platforms that now begin to look like each other, right? You've got this consolidation of platform design because they're all trying to steal different features and affordances from each other. But users are still interacting and engaging with these platforms in very specific ways. They understand them as being or as having utility in different ways. And so my goal in kind of using grounded theory and taking that inductive, qualitative, theoretical approach is thinking through, where are the differences? What are the nuances? How are these platforms influencing user behavior and reconstructing sociality in very unique ways? And the way to start thinking about that is from letting, experiences and the platforms drive our thinking on how those processes unfold. And on TikTok, that becomes even more important because TikTok uses a personalization algorithm that they're very well known for, right? So everyone's experiences is going to be a little different based on how they engage the platform, even my own experiences, even your experiences. And so it's hard to think kind of big picture with a platform like TikTok and say, painting in broad brushstrokes, this is how it is, and this is how it affects user behavior, and this is how we think through how TikTok, interacts with our daily lives. That may be a little, we may be too quick to answer that question because everyone's experiences with that personalization algorithm is going to be so unique. And so I really encourage you, if you're thinking about TikTok, to, one, figure out the element that you're really interested, but to start from the ground up and let the experiences and the users who are in the little communities that they're engaging in, right? The imitation publics that I like to call them, how they're experiencing the platform, how they understand it, how they appreciate it, and the value that the platform brings to their life. And so that's kind of how I see the value of qualitative research on any platform, but especially TikTok.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think it's really, as you said, that it's really important to think about or to contextualize TikTok and other digital platforms in people's daily life, to really study sort of the lived experience of like common people, or like people in the everyday setting. And also you mentioned that, the sort of infrastructures or like the designing of platforms are really important. And then it's related to a very important research method or a new research method about platform that is work-through method. And as Ben, Jean, and Stephanie mentioned in their paper a few years ago that, they proposed this method that's grounded in a combination of science and technology studies with culture studies, through which researchers can perform a critical analysis of a given app. So would you please talk more about this app work-through method and like how you envision that as an important method in platform studies?
Absolutely. So I linked the article that was just referred to in the chat, so I hope you're able to see that. But the method that I used in my TikTok project, and one that I've used before, but I didn't have the terminology for it exactly until about a year or so ago, is the walkthrough method. And it combines critical technology studies with cultural studies to think through how app design, digital affordances, how interfaces construct and guide user behavior in very specific ways. So when we join apps, right, or when we join social media platforms, there are specific features and there are design elements that are coded into these platforms that enable and constrain communication in very specific ways. Again, we're having this consolidation of BDN, so things are kind of looking the same, and yet we're being indoctrinated into these platforms depending on how the engineers are kind of figuring the app and the way they envision how we should participate. And so the walkthrough method is a really critical way for the researcher to deeply engage with interfaces, platform design, affordances, to think through, okay, we certainly have agency in our usage of these platforms, but again, technology does enable and constrain communication in various ways. And so this method gives researchers a step-by-step guide for how you should engage with a social media platform and app to think through how those features are really critical in shaping the way we understand our behavior, what is appropriate on an app, what is not appropriate on an app, how something should be used. And so I encourage you to check out the article. Also, I have this book as well, How Artifacts Afford. It's by Jenny Davis. She just published it last year. She kind of details about 4 or 5 different methods that are really useful for engaging with an app's interface. One of them is the walkthrough method. I'll link that book here as well, but it has been really useful for me as well. I've used it for several years in different projects, but I just kind of found the language and the step-by-step methodological process in the article I linked.
Thank you, Diana, and thank you for recommending the article and the book and related ratings. So next, I turn it to Adriana, and also as Diana said, like TikTok is one platform that is kind of sort of integrated with other platforms in this ecosystem. And also like in your research, you also talk about sort of archaeology of cyber culture or subculture on platforms. So would you please tell us how you understand like the differences and continuities between TikTok as a particular platform and other digital video platforms? Thank you.
Yes, first of all, I'd like to say that I'm just starting on this research on TikTok. It's like very new, it's like my new project. And so we are in the beginning from some things that we have been watching and observing from other researches that I have done. And especially in the case of the subcultures, TikTok is the first one to especially address to it in its own marketing terms. And so we always have been researching like how these creative ways are used, and these groups use this different social media networks and platforms, from LiveJournal to Tumblr and Last.fm and many others. And all these discussions also, they revolved around the notion of authenticity, subcultural capital, and other categories such as gender, race, age, and etc. And I have been thinking, how can we add these theoretical debates for the flexibility of this concept, and also to check how these appropriations are being done. And so in this sense, TikTok is more like than a video platform. It's a whole ecosystem, but the video is central, but also the conversations that revolve around and how these videos are shared through other platforms such as Instagram or WhatsApp. And so this is very interesting. And also these connections between, as Diana said, between like culture and materialities and the affordances, because when we watch some of the researchers talking about digital platforms, and we are all getting to big data and all these numbers, and I'm much more tended to go to a qualitative approach for TikTok because of this algorithm configuration and all the subjectivities. And here in Brazil, we found some trends, and also in with young people, like fashion and design, and also about music. And this is kind of weird when we read what TikTok said about, okay, now subculture is the new demographic. We won't have like social class and race and gender, and we are like, okay, how is that possible? And we find interesting things. Even though it's still very in the beginning, like people who are wearing a hashtag that is called Mulher de Preso, that is a hashtag about people who are in prison with their husbands or boyfriends are in prison, and these girls, they are using this context to do lots of information about the jail, about the juridic system. And it's very interesting because they are using all the TikTok language with dances and with Brazilian music and our culture, and mixing with this mixed of relationships with different media and songs. And so it's a very interesting and creative way that they are using it. And in the other hand, you have all these markers, all these categories of gender, age, etc., especially in Brazil.
Thank you so much, Adriana. Yeah, I think what you just talked about digital video platforms like TikTok and subculture is really important, and also like your research provides sort of like a special like studies in Brazil. I think that definitely like is so important for us to really explore the multiple contextual unfolding of TikTok in different cultural contexts. Thanks. And next, we're turning to Milo about your research on family communication, and you have written papers like how to build trust and sort of cooperative mentorship in the context of families. So like in your research project, I think one special characteristic is that you have recruited like not only parents but also like preteens, or as you already said, the like, younger side of the young people group. So would you please tell us how you negotiate doing research with preteens?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Well, there are a few things that I want to mention, but I'll start with that one. So as I said in the beginning, like my general interest is more broadly at young people and the technology. So I wasn't looking particularly at TikTok, and like even back then, when a few years ago when I started this research project, it wasn't even TikTok. It was the time before the TikTok. So it was at that time it was still called Musical.ly, which later on was rebranded as TikTok. But I'll come back to that later. One of the things that I guess a lot of people would be aware that there is like a lot of moral panic around the young people use, and especially this like a younger demographic, so younger young people use of social media, and they're usually perceived as in danger and consequently in need of protection by adults. So there is like a lot of this like interventionist kind of approach when we are talking about young people using digital technology. And this is why I thought that we need to kind of shift that attention and reorganize the way how we approach that, and we actually give the active role to those young people when we are trying to figure out what they're actually doing and how they engage with social media. For that reason, I took that approach where I actually like visited the families in their homes, because I thought that's important, because the homes are actually the places where young people spend most of their time. That's actually where they engage with media. That's where they make the TikTok videos and so on. So I thought that it's better to go into that environment rather than taking them from this like media consumption place somewhere else. And so I just believe that that will give us like a more genuine insights into how they engage with those media. However, going into people's homes have a number of ethical, if you like, considerations that we have to account. So the first one, and the key one probably is, I mean, the first thing is that we cannot skip parents. So we have to go through the parents are sort of gatekeepers in us accessing young people. So we have to negotiate the entrance to the field. So in my study, I didn't have direct access to young people, so I first had to recruit the parents, and then through the parents get to the young people. However, I wasn't sure, in that kind of like a chain of transmission of the information, how far what I wanted to do is getting to the young people. So once I got to the young people, I had to kind of ensure, and this is where the methodology comes into play, ensure that young people are actually consenting to all of this, that they have control over the research process, over what they're going to share with me and how they're gonna share it. So in that regard, I think that our approach, I mean, probably this is true for any kind of research, but especially when we are working with preteens, I think that flexibility is important. And I know that this is not probably something new, since there is a qualitative research. I think we all know that one of the strengths is being flexible and responding to what's happening in the field. But I also want to mention that not all the methods are equally flexible. So I think that's what we need to keep in mind and kind of ensure that when we are working with young people, we are constantly like checking in back with them, making sure that they are consenting, that they have a control over the information they are disclosing, that it's not influenced, because we already have that disbalance of adult researcher and young participant. But in this case, it's like two adults, so researcher and a parent, and only one child on the other side. So I think that would be like some of the things that I would say before I get into this like specific method that I used in my approach. I think this is more like a general, like a broader considerations that we have to consider when we are planning research with young people.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think it's like first thing that you talk about the ethical side of like doing research with preteens, and also I really like the term that you mentioned, like flexibility. So it's like we have a plan. However, like when you enter into special field sites, so probably we need to change. And also like on the other hand, I think the agency of users or agency of interviewees or participants also affects our research. So the next question like to ask you is, how can we allow users, like in your case, like younger users, to guide our research on social media cultures?
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, I will use very practical example, and I will also give you a little anecdote, a little story why it was very beneficial for me. But it also kind of builds on what Diana said earlier. So I developed for my research, I developed a method that I call social media tours, which is, I'm not claiming that it's unique and nobody did it before, but that's how I named it. I think back like 5-6 years ago, there were quite a few researchers, working with young people or social media apps, and we were trying to kind of figure out, we thought that like the existing research methods were probably not enough. So we were trying to see, okay, what we can add to this mix to enrich our findings. So inspired by, I remember it was in Brisbane, I'm not sure now, 2015, I think I attended the digital method school, and actually Ben, Jean and Stephanie were there, and they were still kind of conceptualizing their method at that time. So I participated in a workshop by them on the walkthrough method for the apps, which Diana just kind of summarized, and I was really inspired by that. And then I tried to kind of adapt that to the context of my research. So where walk up through is giving step by step, if you like, a guide for the researcher how to discover specific apps, I kind of turned that to shift the focus on the research participant. So in my social media tours, it's a young person who is actually guiding me through the app and through the feature. So it's not me as a researcher discovering this, but young person is actually guiding me through the way how they engage with these particular affordances, with these particular apps, and so on. So in short, how it works is I would have my main data collection was like a interview, semi-structured interview. So I would have my set of questions, but I would also ask them to have their own device in their own head, and as we go through the questions, they can then show me examples of what they were talking about. So here we come to that agency that I mentioned again. So it's full control is with them. So they have their own device and they only show me what they feel comfortable sharing with me. So I'm not, intruding into, I'm not like snooping around their profile or their messages or whatever. They're only showing me aspects of what they want to show to me. So that's one key benefit. And the second one, key benefit, I mean, there's probably more than two, but like this would be like really two key benefits that I saw from this, using this method with young people. So the first one is that I allow them to have the full control. And the second one was, so they are not recalling from the memory. So, when you're doing the interview, you're asking people about their experience. So they are not recalling this experience something from the memory. They're actually reminded by looking at the app and narrating through what they are doing. And also it then, as a result, sometimes certain things come up that probably would be forgotten otherwise. And just to conclude this, I would also say like how this, like I'm forever grateful for this method, because it actually helped me find out about the Musical.ly. So back in 2016, when I was doing, as I mentioned, when I was doing this field work for this project, TikTok was not yet TikTok, so it was Musical.ly back in the day. And me, although I believe that I know everything about social media and I was all across what young people are doing, I actually had no idea about. I was typical adult, so as most other adults, I have no idea what Musical.ly was. So this was, I remember, this was like a second family that I visited. I went into their home and there was this 12-year-old girl that I was interviewing at the time. And, I just followed my script. I was asking her about Snapchat and Instagram because that's what I thought is cool for young people. But she was so insistent and she was like, oh, let me show you this app, Musical.ly. And I was just dismissive. So in the first few times that she wanted to show me that, I didn't follow. I was like, no, let's leave that aside, because I thought that it's a game and it's just a tool to make a video, because that's how she described it to me. She said, oh, we are playing on this. So I thought it's a game and I was not interested in games. But luckily, this girl was so persistent in this social media tools, she actually convinced me to sit down next to her and follow, like look on her phone when she was explaining me what they do and how they are using, and all these specific affordances that in this special issue for the International Journal of Communication, I go into more details about this. So there were some features that were very appealing for this particular group, like for example, BFF or Best Fun Forever, which allowed them to kind of play together. So even when, what most of the young people in this age group do, like they like to do stuff together, so they play together. So what Musical.ly afforded them through this BFF feature, they allowed them to have that connected play, if you like. So they could make those funny videos together without actually being in the same room, without being in the same. This feature later became duet feature, and as we know, that's now one of the key features of TikTok, like for creators allowing to respond to the comments and so on. But just as a concluding thought, I think we can have a good discussion further on. I just want to say that this is like just a little anecdote to illustrate how important social media tools were for my own research, for my own findings. So if I haven't used that, I would probably miss this huge opportunity to find out about the new app at a time. It was new, that it's going to become so big for young people. So yeah, do it like because of the specific method I used and the flexibility I had in my approach, but also because of the persistence of this young person that I was talking to. Here I am today researching TikTok.
Hey, thanks, Milovan. Yeah, I think what you just mentioned about your social media tour method is really like interesting. And yeah, as you said, that's informed by app walkthrough method and also like interview. I think it really highlights the agency of interviewees or participants in the research process. And also, can I also ask you this question to Diana and Adriana, like how do you recruit participants for TikTok projects? We know that it's definitely like one of the sort of most difficult parts of doing a research on platform studies. So let's say first ask Adriana, like, can you talk about your approach or your strategy of recruiting participants on TikTok?
Yes, we're still in the very beginning, so we are trying to imagine this difficulty, especially here now in we're still in the pandemic and all these things are very complicated. But I guess right now we are trying to combine some media materials that they own produce and some focus groups, I guess, that can help us relate and this kind of interviews that we will try to start in a few months. But I guess it's very complicated, and also there's some feature that we saw that was the importance of the bedroom in some of the subcultures that we started to watch, because the bedroom is like the whole scene, the whole performance, and not only the streets like it was before. So I don't know how to deal with that, but it's an important feature, I guess.
Okay, thank you, Adriana. So can we ask Diana about your approach to recruit participants?
I have to echo what Adriana said. I'm in the early stages as well, and so I'm figuring it out as along with all of you. And so if anyone has any suggestions, well, let me know. Two things I've kind of been mulling over a little bit. So this is a little out of the box, but I recently am conducting a survey on just a random topic of dogs and social media, and I wanted to get participants from Reddit and Instagram, or not Reddit, TikTok and Instagram, some of the more visual platforms. And so I actually created TikTok videos myself and put a link to my survey in my bio, and was just hoping maybe the algorithm would pick it up and distribute it. And I actually got, quite, significant amount of views for having no TikTok following. So for any researchers who want to put themselves out on TikTok, maybe try to experiment with creating videos themselves to advertise their studies, to capitalize on trends. I say that would be really important because the algorithm does promote trending videos. So make sure you're following what is trending and think about that. Another option that I'm kind of thinking through right now is on Reddit, they do have subreddits dedicated to TikTok and to different TikTok cultures, right? So Reddit is a discussion board. And so if you're interested in TikTok users, you may want to post your survey to a TikTok Reddit forum to recruit participants. And then you can kind of have an intake survey of different participants and how long they've used TikTok, what their follower count is, things like that, if you're interested in accessing people to interview about their experiences. So those might be two unique ways of trying to get participants who are on the platform, who are active TikTokers, to respond to a study that you're interested in. Neither of these have been tested. I did the videos. You can go to my TikTok and see them right now. They're on there. But I'm going to play around with that more and more and see if I can get kind of responses through the platform, and then maybe use a discussion board as well. So.
Okay, thank you, Diana. And also I noticed that, so we talk about like grounded theory, inductive approaches, like walkthrough methods, like social media tool methods, like in-depth interviews. So do you have any sort of like comments about sort of more traditional quantitative way of doing research on TikTok, such as like, questionnaire survey or like content analysis and so forth. So, so would you please give some comments on that, or sort of, how we can do sort of mixed methods research, like not just quantitative, but also qualitative. So would you please comment on this possibility of mixing different kinds of methods?
Me?
Thank you, Diana. Yes.
Okay, yes, absolutely. Again, I haven't done any mixed methods on the platform yet, so this is all just kind of through my thinking of how it might work. But there have been scholars who've done some content analyses on Instagram images, and they're looking for semiotic visual markers in an image, right? They're looking for how body positioning is playing out and how the scene is playing out. And they're coding that in a typical way that you would code for content analysis. And so I think you could probably do that with TikTok videos, code for music, text, whether or not there's dancing. You can code for example, if you're interested in political content, you can code for if political content is being mentioned on these particular accounts, if there's calls to action. So I can see you doing some basic content analysis with video content in the same way that you could do types of Instagram content analyses. Again, with the interviews, I think recruiting through the platform would be really interesting, and then through kind of an intake survey, be able to contact participants directly and set up an interview like you would for any other research study that you would conduct. So those would be kind of my starting points. If anyone else has any ideas, I'd love to hear from the panel.
Thank you, Diana. So next, can we have Adriana to share with us your thoughts on this possibility of like mixed methods on TikTok studies?
Yes, as much as Diana, I haven't tried so many things from now on, but I think these tips are good. And also we are thinking about how to organize videos that they weren't on the platform anymore, or they were deleted, or this is, I think it's something interesting because of how do you think of the constitution of a memory, in this cultural artifact. And so it's something that sometimes gets to my mind because the videos they are uploaded and they disappear like stories in Instagram and all this media. How do you deal with that? And so we are also checking on the combination with like text and video, and trying to map some controversies with combining like hashtags. And also one thing that has helped me a little bit is to collect some news from like journals, not journals, but from media. And because then they have like this kind of memory of a controversy that has happened between like celebrities and fans and this kind of stuff. So it helps to give you some light on the timeline of how things happen, because it's so fast. And sometimes you can get lost on this, and then you have to add some layers to try to understand that.
Okay, thank you, Adriana. So next, can we ask Lowen to share with us your thoughts?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I haven't done mixed method studies myself, so I'm more on the qualitative side. So my studies are more ethnographic. So I more rely on like in-depth exploration of a smaller group of participants, like really understanding their lived experiences and the way how that they particularly engage with that with the app. But I definitely see the value, and I mean, definitely I'm planning into one of the project that is still conceptualizing. I'm considering like using the mixed method approach, because I think that we need to kind of bring those different perspectives, like different insights that we can have from different approaches together, and that's definitely going to enrich our knowledge and what we know about the TikTok. However, I wanted just to refer back to what Diana said, and I think it was really good. Like, I think maybe it was your previous question, like how do we recruit? Like how can we recruit? And I mean, of course, this will depend, and it might change depending on the nature of the project. So what we are actually looking for. But I definitely like her approach, and I haven't seen the videos. I'll make sure to look at them. But like the old saying says, like if you want to reach young people, you need to go where the young people are. And a lot of young people are at TikTok. So I think going on TikTok and actually putting ourselves there, it's a good approach. But other than just creating videos and approaching them in that way, I guess maybe more relevant for Adriana Adriana's study, where she's looking for a particular subcultures, like subculture groups. I guess the hashtag is excellent feature to filter out these specific groups, because she's not looking for randomly any young people. She would probably be more, targeted approach. So I think, yeah, hashtag and probably the musical templates under the videos that are maybe more prominent within subculture, that could be a approach to use. And I mean, that's clearly, if you're talking about this like a kind of like a online recruitment thing, and Diana also mentioned, this like a linking with other platforms and like specific forums and so on. But then also we can think about how we approach, it's maybe more localized, but if we are talking about how do we recruit people in the offline context, so it could be, going through the old traditional channels like school or families and so on.
Okay, thank you so much. I think we're right on time. Thank you again to Adriana, Diana, and Milovan. So this is about the end of our panel discussion. So next we'll move on to the Q&A session, which will last for about 10 minutes. Okay. Thank you. I see a number of questions on the Q&A board. Thank you so much. So first, we have, first we have a question from Nissan. Correct me if I don't say it correctly. The first question is to our panelists: how do you utilize your methods to include people's voices, especially interested in youth? So I think part of Milovan's discussion kind of responded to this question. Or do you want to add more to answer this question, Milovan?
Yeah, sure. Well, as I mentioned, I mean, I don't want to repeat and take from the time. I believe there is like a lot of other questions. But yeah, I'm like a strong advocate of like really acknowledging youth voices. So yeah, just kind of maintaining that, like insisting on the full agency and evolving their voices as much as we can, because it's really about them. So yeah, definitely. I mean, anything that can help in that regard is welcome.
Okay, sure. Thank you, Milovan. And next we have, question from Shelley. So also to you. So your method, like social media tool method, is great and appreciate how respectful it is. So how do you manage or avoid biases in what they share? Wow, it's a really important question. Yeah,
it is. Although I'm not quite sure so what the bias would be, because I mean, whatever they say, it's their authentic opinion and their authentic experience. So I have to take it as it is. In the qualitative studies, we are not trying to find the truth or one truth. So it's simply the experience of young people that were part of my study, and I take it as it is. There is one more thing that I would probably like to mention about that, and it just kind of occurred to me that I'm not sure if I made it completely clear. So when I was doing these social media tours, I also took the chance to record the tours themselves, because they would evaporate from my mind probably after the interview. So I just wanted to keep that. And in doing so literally while the young person would, they guide me through what they are doing on their own device, in their own hand, I would be taking photos or sometimes like a video of what they are doing, recording both voice and the image of what's going on. However, I would, every time before I press that record button, I would ask them again if they are okay with me to record what they are doing. Although I already had a consent form that they signed at the beginning of the interview, but I thought it's important to reiterate that, because maybe when they sign that form, so legally I'm okay, I have the consent, but I just wanted to confirm with them that they are aware that what they are showing me at the moment, that maybe they didn't think about when they signed the form, is what I'm gonna record. So it's just kind of like, giving them that another opportunity to, and like giving them more of that agency to be in a control of the process. it's maybe, slightly diverting from the question, but I just thought this is important to mention.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. And we have the next question. And next question is sort of the other side of the coin. I think the question is directed towards to all three panelists from SHAM. Like the question is, what sorts of safety precautions and strategies do you all, as researchers, enact to protect yourselves? Because we talk a lot about, protecting like ethical issues with our participants. So like what sorts of safety precautions and strategies do you all use to protect yourselves? Okay, shall we also start with Diana?
Sure. Again, I feel a little like a broken record that I'm so new into the TikTok research that I feel like I haven't thought through all of these things, but one of the greatest values of grounded theory and engaging in that walkthrough method is you're not actually engaging with participants or giving personal information out about these, about yourself. And so you're simply just observing a platform like you would any other, phenomenon that exists in the world. And so in that situation, that type of research is really safe, that kind of inductive, grounded, very theoretical projects, which is kind of where my comfort zone is thinking more theoretically and not having as much contact with participants. But I say, follow the same strategies that you would in any type of research study with participants, protecting your email address, using a phone number that's not linked to your personal phone number, right? So kind of going through some of those safety mechanisms, communicating perhaps through the app instead of, again, through email or any type of personal contact information. So as you're protecting the confidentiality and the identity of your participants, you're also protecting yours as well, would be my recommendation. But again, very new and still thinking through some of these issues.
Okay, thank you, Diana. And can we ask Adriana to share your answers to this?
Yeah, I think Diana has said almost everything, and also to remember about like LGBT and the whole place of the platforms in this whole system, and how do you get this data and how do you store them, and so try to think about how we do that in a safer way, with other platforms, not as much as like Google and etc. I know that it's kind of still new in these things, especially here in Brazil, but we're still dealing with this like open platforms and etc. to get the data.
Okay. Thank you so much, Adriana. So next, can we ask Milo to share with us your answer to the question of how to protect yourself?
It's a very interesting question, and I think especially in the context of my like ethnographic approach, where I was actually going into people's homes, that was something that I had to consider and address, obviously. So, I mean, I can't really say that I was in danger at any point, but there is something that you need to consider and make sure that you are prepared for whatever it can happen. So I was literally, as I mentioned a few times, I think now, I was literally going into people's homes. So it's completely unknown territory, right? So it would be like people that I recruited. Maybe we had a phone conversation, booked the time, and then I would be knocking on their door and entering the home. So I'm completely unfamiliar with my research field. I think some of the standard strategies would be, so I would have either my colleagues or supervisors or someone else would always be, or a partner even, would always be informed when I am where I'm going. So where is the location, and probably we would check in before and after the interview just to make sure that there is not too long gap of me going missing.
Okay, thank you, Milo. And I think Diana has another response to this question. So, would you please?
Yeah, I just thought about it. If you are going to create your own TikTok videos to recruit participants, one thing that I would encourage is that you do not make them available for a duet, right? You don't want your videos to be open for other people to duet your video and that you turn into a meme and that someone else takes your content and turns it into something that you did not expect for it to turn into. And then I would also probably recommend taking the videos down once you're done promoting a study, just again, so that it can be a little bit more time limited and people aren't taking that content and replicating it and imitating it in a way that could be unsafe or just unflattering to you in a particular way, because that's always a risk with TikTok. Imitation and replication are built into the platform, and so people may take it up if they find your content to be comical or funny or something to be memed. So just be aware of that. I would encourage.
Okay, thank you, Diana. Okay, it's 9:54. I think we're also right on time. Thank you so much to our three panelists. I think it was so thought-provoking, especially, this field of TikTok studies. It's new, but it's also sort of old because, of this this continuity between TikTok and other digital platforms. And thank you, Bondi and Kristen and Patrick. And thank you to all attendees for being here with us. I think it was definitely a great session. So next I'll turn it to Crystal.
Sure. Thank you so much, Wei Wang and the crew from session 1. I would now like to address what we will do with the rest of the Q&A. So given that there is a really healthy flow of questions, many of them quite specific to individual researchers, many of them at the very meta level to do with copyright, privacy, access, and ethics, I propose that if we are happy to do this as a group, I'll be copying most of the Q&A over to our Twitter thread. And as the event goes by, I invite each of you, even scholars who may work on TikTok with more experience, to also respond via that Twitter thread. Without further ado, I would like to announce what's happening next after our 10-minute break. When we come back at 10:05 GMT plus 8, we'll be moving on to session 2 on operationalizing a TikTok project. Feel free to stay in the room for the next 10 minutes. And in the meantime, in the chat box, you'll be able to locate 1, an exit survey in the event that you have to leave us at this juncture, and 2, the global membership form, should you wish to join us here at the TikTok Research Cultures Network. See you all in 10 minutes.